Am I the only one around who's just absolutely sick of hearing about Star Wars? Because it's like, it's not even any form of like, it's not even remotely fun to discuss anymore. It's just, everything is always like, new announcement, new thing. Disney's doing this, Disney's doing that. Or it's. I knew when Disney bought Star Wars that it would run the risk of like wearing the IP down, but well, technically, I've felt like even back when 20th Century Fox owned it, they were running the IP, but at least it was sticking to like expanded stuff, like constantly amounts of games and shows, and trying to push forwards a whole bunch of other bits and pieces. Now Disney's going overboard with like a whole bunch of new shows, this, that, and other things, and also because it's current year, it has to always. The conversation isn't always people like. The conversation is never just, oh hey, Disney's making a new Star Wars thing, okay. Because it's always current year, whenever anybody talks about it, it's like, oh hey, they're gonna be making a new current year friendly Star Wars that is so woke, and they focus. I literally just got off a podcast where, within like a minute apart, the same bloke was like, mockingly talking about people who want to force gender identity, like gender equality or identity or whatever, down everybody's throats because they think that's the agenda or the thing to do. Like as if major companies even care about that. All they care about is just like making more slop for the consumers to enjoy. They're not doing it to curry favor with anyone, with any like particular political brand. If they did, we'd see it way more apparent with the media and whatever. We'd see it way more apparent with the like I get it. The sequels were bad. But you can't keep. Since when was just casting people like. When was casting women and other minorities or people of representation? When was representation a political thing? When was it just like, I don't know, wanting to just cast someone different this time around? Suddenly it has to be this giant statement rather than just, I don't know, maybe there's like, it'll be something different from what we saw before. But again, nothing in Star Wars is ever different. It's just the same 5 tropes folded around into a different point. And then it's just like, and it doesn't help that anybody who's like, the only few people who, no, not few people, there's a large group of people, because apparently you can't just like Star Wars, you have to be like an absolute religious zealot about it. It's such a ridiculous amount of like, because it's either you absolutely hate what they do, or you love absolutely everything, as long as it's only the stuff that you're addressing. But it's like, this is bad, no, this is bad, no, this is bad. It's like, these are bad because of all the different things. It's like, and there are people out there who actually want to discuss why Star Wars is bad and making points. But the problem is they just surround themselves with all the other annoying people who just like, rather than forward the conversation, just add fuel to the fire. They just make it about. They just say the usual things to just piss people off because they know it will. They just know that if you mention the whole words of like, because we have more women in Star Wars, that means it's like oh, we need certain gender representation, just make more women. Because everything just needs to have more women in it, and that because screw men. Like, and the whole idea of, like, the whole idea that there are people who make videos about, like, believing that Disney actually hate men, or straight, cis, white men. Do you think any companies would be that stupid to endorse that? Like, actually. And no, supporting things, a company putting on Twitter saying they support Black Lives Matter does not count. Because that's a statement, not a movement. If they said, yeah, go ahead and let Antifa just burn everything to the ground, if they'd outright say that, then yeah, that would be inciting it. But saying that people of color also matter does not mean they hate white people, you stupid idiots. How is it this brain dead? I want to take you seriously. I want to hear the discussions about this. But every time it's always the same bloody 5 arguments. Or less even. And guaranteed, whenever whenever a video is made mocking the SJW side who complain about this kind of thing, as if they have any say, they always use the same 3 images. You know the ones I mean, like that woman screaming the night Trump was elected, because of course they'll never find any other ones, because nobody's stupid enough to go out there and actually make themselves well known. In that sense again. It's just annoying. I mean, I already didn't care that much for Star Wars before. I was like, I liked it because everybody else liked it, because lots of other people liked it. I had a few bits and pieces, but I was never in love with the franchise. It just was. It wasn't anything major or breathtaking. I appreciate everything it did for film and as a cinema as a whole. That I can appreciate. I just don't care the same way everybody else seems to really care. What I care about is the fact that I have to keep hearing about it from everybody else. I can't just, like, watch one video about this thing without the algorithm or news outlets going to another thing, oh, you clearly clicked on one video talking about Star Wars, surely you'd like to see all these other people constantly bitching on Star Wars. And it's like, no, I don't care for that. I don't want that to be everything. I don't want to have everything about Star Wars be in this mindset, but then the more I think about it, the more I remember it's so ingrained in everyone's culture that the mere fact that Star Wars isn't this perfect thing is a crime against culture or something. And it's just an embarrassing mess to listen to. And there really isn't anything else. And there really wasn't really much of a point to this little rant. I'm just tired. And it's like, out of all the fan bases and all of the different ones, the Star Wars fan base is the most like, they are passionate. That's how fan bases work. That makes sense. They are passionate about what they do, so they talk about the things they like. But my word, it just gets hard to listen to. It's just like you can't escape, as if it makes any significant difference or something. I don't know. None of this is all just one big rambling mess. Like, what is it that I'm missing? What is it that I don't see that everybody else sees? What is it that everybody else just loves to rattle on and on and on about Star Wars, like that it's not what it used to be. They're still making it, that they still just crank out this slop for everybody else to consume. And everybody else is mad that they can't enjoy the slop. Weren't they the ones asking for more in the first place? And naturally anybody would respond back, yeah, but I didn't want it in the first place. Well, it's like, yeah, I get that. But then there are those who did want more Star Wars, and then complained that they got more Star Wars because it wasn't the Star Wars they wanted. It's just rotating around. It's all slop. It's like manufactured slop is what it is now. And it's Disney's like, this is what you wanted. And it's like, yeah, but I wanted good tasting slop. Well, too bad. It's like, this is the one with the brand name on it, and you ate it, so there we go. And that's just how it works, because that's when you're as big and titanic as a brand as Disney is. You can just do whatever you want, and if you fail, then whatever, you move on. It's like, that's why they're able to push out all of these things in both within their brands or their extended brands or whatever, because they can just crank out as much as they can. They lose millions and then they move on, because they just keep bulking up all that money. And of course, it's like every decision comes down to, well, they want to make money. Yeah, no, duh. What company in this what company in this environment doesn't aim to make all the money in the world? Disney especially, like, their entire goal nowadays is just to, like, keep making media that everybody can consume, so they can keep making money for, I don't even know what they even need all that money for. They just do. It doesn't even make sense why they keep adding on to these piles or whatever. They just do. I've just come to accept that, and I don't need to think anymore about that. Or there's just so many pauses in this. And worse still is, like, it takes time out of my head that I want to think about other stuff. I want to focus more on, like, my drawing or my other stuff. I want to be creative, and naturally people also want to be creative, so they put out all of this stuff. And I could just as easily be one of those YouTubers. I could just put a microphone in front of me, have some silly little avatar, say whatever comes to mind, and then complain that there are people on the other side who I disagree with, which I don't even care that much about. I don't even need anybody to disagree. I don't even care if anybody disagrees with me. That I'm like, I don't care about Star Wars. I don't care that other people think that I don't care. I care. The things that I care about is, why is it that everybody is so hung up over all this? Why nobody can just, like, because they feed into it. It's always feeding into it. It never stops being about. It never stops being about Star Wars. Oh no, that part doesn't even make sense. How does any of this work? How am I? And it just really bloody hurts my brain just thinking. I don't even know why I turned this whole thing on. Why? Because clearly I've got to care, right? That's why I put all this on. That's started somewhere. I mean, why anybody on YouTube just starts any of their other random videos? Because they care enough that they want to voice what people say. And naturally, that's where it all starts. You just put a microphone in front of you, regardless of quality, regardless of audience you may or may not have. Just put it out there for people to hear. Then people hear it, and it's like, and then you gain an audience. Then it grows. Then one by one, people start latching on to the fact that, hey, this person dislikes something that I also dislike. That means that person agrees with my views. So you start following that person endlessly. That starts being everything you're building your culture around. That is until they say something that you disagree with. It always comes down to what they actually believe in, like what they think is right, or like what they're for rather than against. Which is always the thing that breaks through everything, is like, because you never fully understand like who's behind a microphone or a webcam or something, or someone else, or whatever. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm just bored. And I want people to move on. I just want people to move on with their lives. Like, there are so many people on YouTube, so many, who spend days and days every single day just like making a new video, something new about anything, from Star Wars to Marvel to DC to comic books to games and everything. Is like, because everything is all going towards some big, like, random left-wing whatever, as if anything in America is left-wing, or Britain or anywhere else. I find that laughable. Or even as like, or just constantly rattling on about people who you think are right-leaning, or very far right-leaning, or whatever. That's another thing I don't care for, because everything is like, if you dislike it, it's a certain direction. Doesn't even matter if it makes sense or it lines up, it just always goes to the left, it always goes to the right. If you disagree on, like, there being a lot of stuff on Star Wars, if you somehow have a differing opinion than the current narrative on Star Wars, you're all right. You're one of those terrible Nazi people, or whatever. Even though, last I checked, Nazism was like a centrist thing. It was definitely more. It wasn't as much being left or right. It was more authoritarian. Again, I only look up basic things, and people who are on the left aren't really leftists. There aren't that many of them, because most of it is like, what, like 2 inches to the left or something? I don't know. I don't know how the political system works. I don't know what the compass is all about, or what any of this has to do with anything. Because then, again, it comes back down to, suddenly it's all about politics. And it ain't about politics. It's about identity politics. It's all identity. Is like, they saying that as if that's somehow like this new, like, as if this is big important thing. Identity politics, as if that somehow changes the way we all live in society, or something, or whatever. Like, if any of these quote-unquote political YouTubers are so bloody well into politics that they would actually like try their best to sit into one of those Congress meetings, or watching a full stream of those sessions of Parliament, whenever all the Tories just get into one room and just yell at each other, and then occasionally somebody else chimes in, and then they yell some more, and then they just go about their day, and just nothing ever really changes that much. Because that's what politics is. It's just constantly yelling back and forth until something slightly budges, but in the grand scheme of things, nothing actually changes or anything. If anything, that's one of the things the prequels did right. It actually represented how stupid and roadblocky the political system is. Is it fun to watch? Absolutely not, because politics isn't fun to watch. Which is probably the point, which is also a bad thing as to why that movie... I don't know why they thought that was a good idea to film. To include that in a movie for people to watch. Not even just kids, just people in general. Like, who finds that entertaining? Who chimes in to, like, watch a room of stuffy, old, out-of-touch people bollock on about what is or isn't relevant to society or something? It's just... I'm just tired of every single... You can't escape it. Whenever it's like online, it's like even little things. Like The Mandalorian has been a hit. Right? It's like, that we can all admit. It's like, that's something that came out, people liked, there we go. And it's like, there's people who see that and it's like, I actually don't think it's that good. And it's like, that's fine. That's cool. And it would end there. And then you just keep... And then, of course, when the second season comes out, suddenly everything keeps drumming up again. It's all the same stuff. Like, feminists complaining about a boob armor or something. That's stupid. Or complaining about, like... And then we see legacy characters finally showing up. And it's like, hey, the costume doesn't look right. I'm like, oh my god. I don't care. Just... It's like nothing can be just even perfect or something, or just it just can't exist. Suddenly everything is like, you can't let anybody enjoy anything. Now of course you can, because people will enjoy it regardless of whatever anybody else says, but it's just like, I don't know, why you stress so... Doesn't even make sense to me. I don't know what it is that everybody sees in this stupid world. Why this series of all things is of, like, absolute importance that needs to be fought for or something or whatever. I don't know. I really don't know, and I don't care. I say I don't care, but yeah, I care too much about what other people think, which maybe that's my downfall. I have more faith in people than I probably should, but I'd rather not be a cynic. I think that's the thing. I always care what other people think about, because I just care for other people. That's my nature. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's just it. Maybe it's just people rather detached from, who like to separate, like, mentally from everybody else. That they don't have to associate themselves with those fans. That it's never just like that they want to admit that they're on the same level of humanity that other people are. They just want to make a statement about... And it's like, just want to let loose. Just people who are frustrated want to let loose. Just say whatever comes to mind without fear of, like, oppression or whatnot. That whole freedom of speech thing is just like people who are just tired of, or who are just also tired, but just lose themselves. And of course, when you're on YouTube, it suddenly becomes a platform where you can actually do a lot like that. You can make a lot of money and a lot of influence on this platform by saying all of this stuff. So then you double down and you can't go back from it, because the very minute you start like backpedaling, you would end up losing your audience. So you have to double down. I don't know. So yeah, it's a mess. I really don't know. But hey, they apparently Osaka looks promising. I mean, I don't know anything about Clone Wars, but I find it an interesting, like, this one side character from went from Clone Wars to Rebels to now she's actually in live action, so that's a representation, I guess. That's a legacy character, have I ever seen it? I don't know. I'll just close out with one little statement, because I'm just done with dealing Star Wars fans, or with the brand as a whole. I'm just gonna stick with where I belong. I'm just gonna stick around with the Sonic fan base. At least they know they are embarrassing and don't pretend they're not. Am I kidding? Of course they're still